Hello and welcome to Elseworlds DC Fan Podcast. My name is Jordan. With me, as always, is Chris. How are you today, Chris?
I'm doing good. It's a good day. It went by so fast.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too. Yeah. This. Hey, you know what? This season went by so fast. Hell, the whole show did, right?
hmm
We'll talk about that. We're talking about the final episode, the series finale of Superman and Lois, season 4, episode 10, episode 53 overall. It went by so fast. Directed by Gregory Smith, written by Brent Fletcher and Todd Helbing, and it premiered December 2nd, 2024 on the CW. Um, this whole episode is just going to be dedicated to this, and then I think next week, we have, in a couple days, we have Creature Commandos dropping, so we'll talk about that next week, and maybe do a news catch up at some point next week. Or soon, because we know we're having the Superman trailer probably sometime soon as well. So that'll be like a DEFCON 1 situation or whatever. So this episode will just be focused on the finale of Superman and Lois. And I don't know where you want to start with this, Chris, but let's dive in.
Okay. There's a lot we can go with here. I think that we got to talk about the boys, Jordan and Jonathan, really stepping up in this episode, and Lois letting them into the action when Clark didn't really want them to. I thought that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, the boys, like you said, they step it up. They do what they're supposed to do. They help out, much to Clark's chagrin, right? But they join in, they fight. We'll see what they later get into as well, right? They're going to step in for Clark later in life as well. But no, I think it was a good send off for the boys. I think that they finally get uh, their due, I guess you could say, right? Like I feel like they got done what they needed to do. Um, I feel very good about like where we end it with the boys. I think in the show as well.
Yeah, everyone got their happily ever after too. I mean, it's really uh, there's no untied knot right now. And that's kind of a good feeling when you're never going to see these characters in this iteration again. And look, I got to be honest with you. When Jordan saved Jonathan, he's giving him the CPR kind of thing. He's like, "Did you just blow me up?" And they have this nice moment where it's like, "Please don't leave me." It's like, I promise I won't." Just a really, I, I don't know, got to me. It was really awesome. It was really nice to see the brothers on the same level, to see them working together. I it's- I don't know. That got to me more than I thought it was going to. I really like that.
Yeah, they always have each other, right? That's what Clark said. I think it was that maybe the episode before or this one. I forget
hmm
because I watched them back to back again to catch my wife up on it. But yeah, I mean that's how it kind of felt is that they are always going to have each other, and that was a nice little reference to here at the end. Um, I was actually kind of worried they were going to kill him. I knew in the back of my mind there's no way they kill him off, but I was I was kind of like, oh dang, he's dead, and they have to kind of um,
Yeah,
you know bring him back to life.
yeah. It was a little interesting. You had the death of Superboy almost. Uh, but
Right, right.
I really liked that Lex shot Jonathan with a blast, and because I feel like he thought he could screw with Jordan some more, and I thought he was thinking let's get his verbal screws in, and he's saving the kryptonite screws, but he get the verbal ones in, and then Lois uh, baiting Lex and saying, "You're so afraid of me that you have to attack other people," and
Mm-hmm.
like. You know, you keep saying you're going to kill me, just do it. And what a scene! Like, first off, Lois is a badass. Secondly, she really got under his skin. Like, it's like you've lost control when you're just in broad daylight, just going, "Time to die, Lois." Like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's like it was so. I was like, when did Lex Luthor become the Green Goblin? But it was it's so dramatic. But Lois, a hell of a scene. And then I thought that whole sequence was really, it packed a punch.
Yeah, Lois was, I think, at her best in these last two episodes that we've gotten. I don't just mean Bitsy Tolik either. I just mean like I think Lois was the most Lois she's ever been. She's trying to bring down Lex. She's cracking the case. She's um, working with Bruno Mannheim and gets him to help assist bringing down their mutual enemy. And it all pays off here, like you said, in this scene where she confronts Lex and is pretty much baiting him into doing something, right?
Mm-hmm.
To just get him off of her children is really all she's worried about this time. And I think another thing that is really cool about it is I don't know how much Lois. I think a lot of this is faith too, that Superman was going to come back, because she turns around and says, "It's like, no, he can," and it's before he's even like close to them,
Yeah,
right? So like she knows, she has faith here that he's going to pull this out and he's going to arrive. But I just thought that was a pretty cool moment. And at that point, he is not full strength still, but I mean, he's healed, right? He's
yeah,
healed from
the
what they were
sun.
doing before. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things I liked about the whole Superman taking uh, Doomsday to the sun thing is Superman healed, his wounds healed, but he still had the 60-year-old heart. They didn't take the easy way out
Yeah.
and like be like, okay, now he's Superman again, because then you would have said, well, why didn't he just go up to the sun beforehand? So I like that they didn't like reverse course on that. I thought that a lesser show would do that.
Yeah.
And I also like Doomsday just holding his hand out there and be like, no, and seeing the flashbacks of his world and just kind of gracefully going out into the sun was a very powerful scene. You see Superman ready to punch him, and the fight's over, and he gets it.
Yeah. He was just done fighting at that point, right? He has probably fought for so long at this rate. He knows he can't get back home at this point, I think, too, because he was trying to get back home. It didn't seem like he wanted Lex to kill him again to make him more powerful either. He was trying to pull the bombs out, like the little grenades out. I think he was just kind of done with being um
A monster.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it also helps that he got his ass kicked with the hammer too. He's probably like, all right, like I'm done. And he's up there by the sun, which is his weakness. So it's also like I can't even overpower you if I wanted to.
Yeah. I thought it was a beautiful send off. I thought the story came full circle. Like the story came full circle. Everything you just said, like he couldn't go back home. He saw his flashes of his past, of his life. It's so important how much love matters to the show. Even to Doomsday, love is like those central driving force. And that's a weird thought. Like that's a weird sentence, but it just I think it's powerful. I really like that. And I also just thought it was a beautiful scene. Like the cinematography of this show. CW, this was HBO, dude. It was so good.
The budget was there, even though they had a budget cut. They were able to make it work to the point where we only saw Doomsday a couple times this season, right? We saw him in the premiere. We saw him like mid-season when Lois confronts
Yep.
him, and then we see him at the end here, and that was enough spread
Hmm.
to know that he's still a threat there. You also have the Luther threat, and it felt like we had a lot of stuff going on this season. Like, it never felt like, to me, this is one of those instances where I know there was a budget cut, but like I can't see it on screen. I know some people will say the easy things of like, oh, but we missed some of the characters, right? Like, not
Hmm.
every character was in every episode, and that's true. But I felt like it was still perfectly paced throughout the 10 episodes with these characters. Like, we got that whole episode in episode 4 that was dedicated to like Chrissy and Kyle, and it sets them up enough that when we get them in this episode, and in the episode where they're shopping for their house, right? Like, we had enough time with them to still wrap up their story, and it didn't feel like they were missing in action. To me, like, none of these characters really felt like they were missing in action
Yeah, I agree with that. Plus, there's so much going on with the story they were telling that it's
with the
not like
main
we felt.
characters. Yeah,
Yeah, it's not like we had time for some of these storylines anyway. In fact, if maybe they had their full budget and they had all the characters, maybe it would have been less of a impactful story because they would have cut away to like a B plot that
right, right.
nobody really cares about. I think when you look at the like last season of The Flash, there was some C plot stuff that like, come on, guys, we at this
That's
point,
on the writers. They had
yeah,
13 episodes. They had just 3 more than this show. They could
hmm,
have wrapped up so much better in the final season of Flash. And I'm saying that as somebody that enjoyed the final season, by the way, because I binged it. So I wasn't dealing with like the weekly fallout of that's it. Like, I was enjoying it on a binge. But that's on the writing. They could have done more with their 13 episodes than they did, and the proof of that is this with 10 episodes.
yep,
I feel like we got so much more than that final season of The Flash, and I feel like um, this is how you do a final season
yeah.
of a show. I mean,
I
you
this
you get
show,
the characters,
yeah,
you get the characters. Yes, it could have been necessity due to the budget cuts, but like you get the characters enough send off throughout the course of the season, so that way when the final 2 episodes are going on, it's mostly just focused on Superman, Lois, and the boys facing off against Lex and Doomsday, and it feels like you have enough time to get everything done. I mean, they wrap up all the fighting with still like 30 minutes left of the show, which is
well,
great.
no, they didn't drag it out. Their story made sense, and it packed a punch, and I think they hit all the story beats. The Flash had 9 seasons, and this show had 4 seasons. You could legitimately make the argument that this show had the same amount of great seasons as the Flash. Um, I mean, 4 strong, like perfect seasons. I would argue the Flash had at least 4. I think 5. I would say that were like damn good television. But and the Flash has always been my favorite show of the whole lot. But I just think what you said, that's the writers. They did so much with this season. They certainly did. They put on a master class on how to do this, in my opinion.
And what helps too is that the people that are writing this show are the people that have been writing this show since the beginning. We didn't have a change in showrunners like we did on The Flash or Smallville or Arrow. Like, these were the people that created the show, and they knew exactly where they wanted to go, and they had a 7-season plan. And when they got to season 4 and they were told it was the end, they were able to truncate stuff into this and make it a really strong final season. Um, let's talk about the Superman of it, right? Is
Hmm.
a guy we haven't touched on yet, and he is the star of the show. And it starts off with a narration monologue by him, and it ends with a monologue by Clark. And I want to say I called it, though I thought it would be a Lois monologue, but there was a monologue with a montage at the end showing where everybody kind of ends up. So I enjoyed that. Um, but I think we now understand what they meant when they said they were going to do something that no other iteration has done. and that gives this Superman a completely closed storyline. And I was kind of conflicted on if I would want that, right? Like I think before I said in our episode that we did last year or earlier this year, I think it was last year, what do we want from the final season of Superman and Lois? And what I had wanted was kind of like, just let us know that like he's still out there, the boys are out there, they're still making saves, they're still doing their thing. But I feel like this is the happy medium where we got that, but we also get full resolution on Superman. What I mean by that is he did continue. The boys did follow in his footsteps, but we also see his last moments. And we do this flash of, no pun intended there, like flash forward of his next 32 years that he survives after the heart transplant. And I mean, look, he still looks damn good. He's got to be like in his 70s at this point, right? If he was 40 some around the time of Superman and Lois and he lives another 32 years, he's like 70 some, looking pretty darn good. Kyle looks pretty good for in his 70s too, I guess.
Kyle didn't even look like he was in the 70s, but
they did put they did put makeup on him and gray hair.
A little gray hair, but he looked like he was in his 50s.
Yeah, maybe he's Kryptonian.
Oh God. We were just talking about media literacy. He's got Superman's heart. Gosh,
oh yeah,
the last
Lex
episode.
Stuff. He's got super hearing.
I just laugh at the internet sometimes. But dude, this was such a good story about Clark. I feel like Smallville was the journey of becoming Superman. Not that they're connected or the same story,
right.
but Smallville was the journey of becoming Superman. And we see a lot of the movies, there are chapters in the Superman lore. This was the life of Superman. This was Superman living his life and like fully as Superman. And I don't think because of the way projects are often modeled and to build onto something that we could ever have something isolated like this that really does what this did. And I think this is the value of Elseworld storytelling. I think that could be the legacy of this show, showing us how to do that and showing us why that's important. This is such a perfect closed loop Superman story. Like it's you get everything. You get a little bit of the beginning, you get a lot of the end. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, this is one that I think tells his full life, right? Like we have that episode in season 1 where we get to see a lot of the flashbacks, the twins being born, Lois and Clark meeting, his history in the city as Superman, right? As he first comes out as Superman. We also had his past in season 1 as well, where it shows him, taking, being a teen in Smallville and then leaving and becoming Superman. And we had parts this season where we're seeing him with Jimmy and we're seeing flashbacks in that regard with Lois taking down Lex and him having that dual identity. But then we also see the family aspects of these two characters, and then we actually get to see him meet his grandkids, and then we get to see him adopt Crypto, and then we see him die. Like it is like it is the full book. This would be called like the life and death of Superman or something, right? Like we see everything in his life. Anything important that happened, I feel like we got to see it in this show.
I would have loved to see if you just see one of those little grandchildren just like start speeding off or something. That would be interesting.
Yeah, like having powers.
But
they're like a quarter Kryptonian though, so I don't know how much power.
I know. But then I'm watching that thinking, all right, would this be like a litter of like superpowered children? Like, how would this impact the world? Like, I was like, that's a rabbit hole you could go down. But I'm like, then I was thinking, how many kids did they have? I'm like trying to count. I was like they had 4 each. That's impressive. I really liked that though. It's so sweet. It's like if that doesn't warm your heart, you're not living.
I'll tell you, the biggest cry I had was actually him adopting crypto. As sad as that sounds,
Dude, that got to me too. And I love the line. How
I
could
looked
I
at my
never have a dog
dogs.
before?
I know. I looked at my dogs. I was like,
Uh,
come up here and cuddle with me. Like, come on.
yeah. How have I never had a dog before? Was a great line. Yeah, that's such a beautiful dog too. I
Yeah,
just, I like these. Like we took a lot of walks, watched a lot of sunsets, took a lot of naps. Like that, you know. Uh,
that's the life right
yeah,
there.
I'm like, give me a slice of that. Living, simple life in Kansas with a dog, and you take a walk out to the
Your
diner every
kids
now and
visit
then.
every so often,
Yeah,
and
it's
yeah,
just that's the ideal end of life situation, man. Uh, yeah, he deserves it. Like this is such a great Clark. Uh, I love that the family stayed so strong, and I love that it's such a stable, perfect family. Like it's so beautiful. And I love that when he said like after he died the second time, like when he's talking about he said what life is about, and he's family, and he's looking at John Henry Irons and Lana, and he says family with that. I think that's a really important message to kind of put in there because family is about the ones that are most important to you, and they're certainly in that category. I just thought it was perfect. Like the sentimental, like if this didn't get to you, you either just didn't watch it like purposely, like you were on your phone the whole time, or like you just not living. This was so emotional, and it was so sweet. It was just. I love superhero television that is mature enough to just be heartfelt and sweet. More of that, please.
yeah, not cynical all the time, or this was. I like how they leave it open to so like to it's a little open to interpretation, but also a very closed story, right? So like he does
Hmm.
die, but you can also kind of see what you want to see in this, right? Like, is it he's dead and then everybody there with him afterwards is dead, and it's like this, like time doesn't exist in the afterlife and he gets to spend it with everybody and now he gets to live with Lois forever? Or is it just like part of the montage while he gets to see Lois, and those people are not actually there and it's just memories as he goes through? Like there's multiple ways that you can interpret that. um, and it's like it can be whatever you want it to be, really.
Look. When it comes to the afterlife, I'm kind of a believer in once the lights are out, the lights are out. But this is very nice and very sweet, and I think if you think about it too much, it kind of takes it away from what I was trying to do. Trying to feel the heart of it was really good. I get emotional just talking about it because his cup was so full. He's like, I came to this world with nothing or nobody, and his cup was so full at the end. It's just, it's a great way of saying, if you live a meaningful life, you give it your best, and you embrace others along the way. You're always going to have so much. You're going to be rich where it counts, and I think Superman is just showing you the way to live, man. Seriously. I mean, not to get too profound, but what would Clark Kent do is a pretty good motto.
Yeah. Another thing I like that was very open interpretation is who the boys' wives are. They don't give them names, but
Hmm.
you can interpret it however you want. In my interpretation, it was Candace and Sarah.
Sure.
One was blonde, one was brunette, and the brunette was with Jordan. The blonde was with Jonathan, and that's where we last saw them. But they're not named. It can be people they met after their adventures. It can be whoever you want. So, like shippers out there, if you want it to be whoever you want it to be, it can be, right? Like there's nothing blocking that interpretation.
Oh, I thought it was good. In my head, Jordan and Sarah end up together. But that's my head. I liked where they left Sarah. She got to do what her mom didn't get to do, which fulfills Lana's, job as like a mom, giving her the things that she didn't get to have. And Sarah, sees the world a little bit. She gains some experience and some perspective, and I think that that's the perfect time in your life to do that. Like, what an opportunity. So I like where they left Sarah. I thought that was a very healthy thing. In my head, Jordan, it doesn't really matter where Sarah wants to be because Jordan can be there in a second. So that, like, if you're interpreting like, oh, she doesn't want to be in Smallville, well, these people can be anywhere in a second. So I didn't think that wrote that off. So in my head, Jordan and Sarah get together.
Yeah.
Have their happily ever after, and it's a future that I like. So I'm gonna stick with it. There's no reason not to.
Right. Right. We got the nice scene of the boys getting their suits. I'm going to share the picture of it here as they're flying along with Steel and Nat.
That's a picture you could hang on the wall. It's just, that's perfect. Just freaking awesome. And I love how, you got the Superman symbol on Steel now, and
he's got the cape too.
Yeah, it's just, I loved the wedding. They're like, "You're a true man of steel."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Well, that works two ways, because like Man of Steel is a Superman moniker, and his name in the comics is Steel." So it's like,
right.
I was like, okay, I love it. I also like that when they're like doing the charity like thing, the bag says "For All Seasons."
Yeah, that's the name of their charity, For All
Yeah,
Seasons. So that's a nice reference as well.
That's real nice. It's the little things the show didn't have to do, but they did. Kind of define the show, in my opinion.
We have this nice picture of Lois and Clark watching the sunset. We hear at this point as well that Lois's cancer comes back. I wonder if that would have been a later plot point, or if that was just a, this is how she dies type of storyline here. But, and you get the heartbreaking line of her saying daddy as she dies too. Like she sees her dad as she is passing. So I know they said they wanted to bring him back when she said that line, but I guess just couldn't get the actor back for that scene. So
well, it was just kind of silly because they could have just recorded that when he was there. But
maybe, I don't know how that works with contracts.
Yeah, maybe, but I feel like it could have been an easy workaround. But I don't think it needed it. I really don't. It's such a nice moment. I couldn't tell if they like juxtaposed the kids' faces on the adult bodies, or they got different actors all together. And it seemed like they were taller at one point. That was interesting. Because I feel like they're kind of done growing height wise, but they've been 15 forever, so who knows? It was just, I like it. I like how he's like, oh, Jordan shows up every day. John too.
Yeah, that was odd. That was a kind of odd way to say that, but
that's kind of how they like parent it. Like, it's like, they talk about one and then they talk about the other. I think it's a way of making them both feel special. They've been doing that throughout the whole show, but maybe that's just how I interpret it. But I thought it was really cool.
Let's see, what else do I have here? Yeah. By the way, Jordan and Jonathan pumping out the kids. By the way, there's a lot of grandkids.
That was a lot. Yeah, that's a lot. I think I counted 8. So
that sounds right.
4 each. Maybe it was maybe one was 2 and one was 6. You don't know. Um, it seems like they clumped them together into groups of 4.
Yeah.
Again, the specifics and thinking about it too much, we don't really need to do. But yeah.
And by the way, just seeing Crypto again, I just need to mention that again. Just really cool that they brought in the dog, and I was hoping they would name him Crypto. They
Uh-huh.
did.
I would have
Looks,
laughed if they named him Shelby.
yeah, it looked very similar to Shelby, who was first called Crypto.
That's why I was thinking that. I would have laughed if they called him Shelby.
There were
But
some good references to stuff throughout here, like the Doomsday fist dodge by Clark was very similar to like the Henry Cavill, like like moving his head in slow motion as the
yeah, it
thing
was.
comes through, and you had Shelby, and there was a post I saw that had like out of context images, and they were very on point. Oh, the other one was like a picture of Christopher Reeve with like his sweater on, and it looked very similar to the sweater that Clark's wearing in this scene. So that's probably a good reference to that as well, like a corduroy or soft knit sweater. And then a comic cover, of course, that had the Dawn of DC Superman Action Comics 1051 had like the cover that had the Superman family on it. So it's
Yeah,
very
I saw
similar to
that.
this
I saw that
scene.
this morning. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, some good references to stuff throughout the Superman mythos in this episode, but at the heart of it, you have Superman taking down Lex. We flash forward a year later. We have the wedding between John Henry Irons and Lana Lang. We have Chrissy having another boy, having another
Yeah.
son here. So Kyle's now had 2 girls and 2 boys.
And Kyle had a really nice moment with Lana at the wedding,
Yeah.
where they had one last dance together, and uh, I think they were in a really good place as former spouses with kids. That was I like to see that. It was really I'm just gushing over this episode. It's just I feel like sappy, but it got to me in the feels. It's really cool to see that they can still be friends.
Yeah, I mean, very satisfying ending for all characters. I can't like say a bad thing about this episode. I know some people I saw online were upset or like said that you don't have to see Superman die, that they were kind of down on that. But I think that's one thing that made this very interesting for me. We can go back, and I think this works perfectly as a binge, the final season. I think
Hmm.
people, if you binge this final season, I think you'll probably look back at this season even more fondly. But I think if you binge the whole show, it's 53 episodes. There's people now that are going to know that it has a complete story. That some people wait for a complete story before they even watch the show.
Hmm.
So you're going to have some people pick it up on Max when season 4 drops, and they're going to watch it all, and they get a full complete story. There's no risk of uh I don't know what I would like. I saw some people say like, oh, they shouldn't have like aged up the boys, or they shouldn't have flashed forward 32 years, all this kind of stuff. But my main thing with this is the story was always Superman and Lois. That is the name of the show. And yes, it's a family story, and the other 2 characters are leads as well. But it makes sense to me that our story ends with Superman and Lois dying
Hmm.
peacefully, right?
They
Like,
they got to grow old together. That the point
yes.
wasn't that they died. The point was that they lived the life they wanted to live. That's the entire point. And if you don't get that, then you're really just picking at straws because you want to pick at straws.
Well, because
I'm sorry.
you know what the bigger issue for me would be is if, let's say, Clark fully heals, right? Tal
Hmm.
Rowe appears and gives him his heart, and he now has a Kryptonian heart again, and he can live out the rest of his days. In most media, Superman lives until like the end of time. And what worse life that could be? Watching Lois die, watching your kids die, watching your grandkids die, as you are beholden to be Superman for the rest of time. In this case, he was able to pass off the torch, spend his last days with his wife, his dog, his kids and grandkids
It's
as he
exactly what he wanted.
passes off, and now gets to spend eternity with Lois Lane in the afterlife. Like, that is exactly a happy ending for Clark. I see some people say it was a sad ending. No, it was an
Uh,
uplifting, happy ending for Clark. He got to live the human
this is
experience and the human life he wanted with the woman he wanted.
this is a great example of media literacy being a problem, though. People are like, "Oh, they died, so it's sad." Like it's like this. My heart felt so much hope after this episode. My heart felt so much joy after this episode. If the sadness is what you're taking away, you're not thinking about the characters themselves. You're just thinking of basic plot points and it ended with death, so you're sad. I can't understand you if you're telling me that this is a sad finale. The point is that they lived the life they wanted, and they were given that ability. And the funny thing about this whole thing is that you just kind of brought it up. Clark would have hated to be this immortal figure. Like it would have been like dying the first time was for him. It's just you gotta you gotta meet the characters where they are in the story. I think a simple reading of this is they were sad. I think it was such a joyous, hopeful. There's a whole world. There's a whole family that's built on top of this family. There's 8 grandkids. Oh my goodness. I don't know. This is why it's so hard to talk to people sometimes because I just don't know how do they come to these conclusions.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what I wanted from a final season, final episode of the show. We do know the boys took up the mantles. We do know they went out there and did stuff. We know that Clark was able to have his happy ending with Lois. Yes, her cancer returned, but she dies in the loving arms of her husband and spends eternity with him in the afterlife. She sees her father again in the afterlife. Like, there is um so much good that happened in this, that they got to put Lex away. They won. He got his appeal denied. Like,
Yeah.
there was
And Bruno's on top in the prison, so
yeah,
that's satisfying. You're gonna make a great chair, Lex. Alexander. He calls him Alexander.
yeah.
Um, I'll tell you this about Lex Luthor. I love this Lex Luthor. The reason I do is because there's nothing left. He's lived life. He's given in completely to anger and hate. And this is what happens when you live on nothing but anger and hate. I feel like this is a realistic thing of you have this rich, powerful guy who has vendettas, and the vendettas are the only thing he can focus on. And I think this is exactly what you would get if you had a narcissist with a ton of money, a ton of power, and the ability to really go after his enemies. I and I loved the scene where Lex was part of the afterlife image, and
Yes.
it was forgiveness was one of the things. And and it's so funny because Lex never would deserve forgiveness, but it's still part of Superman's story, and that's powerful. Your villains don't. Your villains, your worst nightmare. You can forgive, and you can lend love where they have none, and that's powerful. And how better would the world be if that's how we thought about things? But I thought this was a very good Lex because people are saying he's one note, he's just an angry little old man, and that's exactly what he was. He's a pathetic, angry old man. That's what hate and anger gets you. And I thought it was very realistically written, in an unrealistic world. I just but in this world, that's what Lex Luthor would be. So he's been in jail. You know, I I love this Lex. I think this is a great interpretation of his psychosis.
I think it's an interesting Lex. I obviously my favorite is probably always going to be Rosenbaum. This one is a very different Lex, right? Like he's more of a gangster until this final season when he starts wearing the suits and starts wearing, cuts his hair, shaves, and before that he's very much almost like a, I don't know, like rich gangster who can get his way and does things wearing the leather jacket. But it's Alexa a very different point of his time. He spent 17 years behind bars due to a wrongful conviction. Now he is guilty in everything else, and they do very stress that throughout these episodes. But the thing that he was in prison for was wrongful. Lois, I still think, did the right thing of getting him out and then trying to get him for the correct thing, which they do get with the help of Amanda McCoy this time. As she realizes she was going to be replaced, Lex was about to kill her until the boys
I,
stepped in and saved her.
I loved Lois basically putting Amanda McCoy in her place. I loved Lois screaming at her. Yeah, this wasn't part of the plan. There was no goddamn plan. This was always the plan. They were going to come after me and my family, and now the whole town is being destroyed. Congratulations, you're an idiot. I loved it. It was great. What a takedown by Lois Lane. And I love that. Like it's like okay, and now your stupid ass is gonna help us. Um, the only thing I would complain about like in this season, we didn't really need Milton Fine. You weren't going anywhere with Brainiac. Just call him something else. But other than that, I got nothing.
Um, I disagree with that. I think it's fine that this is the role Brainiac got in the show, and that it's just as a normal Milton Fine Brainiac interpretation without him being the main guy. I think it's a fun little nod, but he didn't need to be the main guy, and I think I'm glad that they very much focused on Lex and that like Lex and Doomsday are the big bads of this.
It
Like I
makes me
said,
wonder if he was going to have a season if they had the 7 season plan.
maybe. Maybe. Yeah, I wonder how fleshed out the 7 season plan was. Or
Because maybe they had already started casting him and they were like, well, that story is going to be
no, they
scrapped.
wouldn't have casted him until the scripts were written. So, and at that point, they didn't know they were going to get picked up for a final season.
Yeah.
At the end of season 3. So I don't think they were fully. I think they knew that they were not going to see the full 7 seasons, and that they were lucky to get 4. But if we're looking at the CW in the past before Nexstar bought it, the show probably does get 7, right? Like,
Yeah. Well, they probably cut all the writers because they make too much money. And then you probably would end up with a season that you're like, what the hell is this?
I'm very thankful. I know people are like, "Hey, we should try to save this show, or we should blah 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 blah
I'm
blah."
so I'm so glad they tied all the knots
Yes,
because
there's
you
no
can't
risk
do
of
it
that.
now.
Yep.
Yeah, you can't. What are you going to pick up? I saw some people saying, well, you could have a Superboy spin-off show.
No,
Nobody's going to watch
no,
it.
nobody's gonna watch that. No.
I'd watch it, but nobody else is going to watch
Yeah, and it's like, what, we don't need that. They obviously do their own adventures. The show
it.
was never fully about them. It's about Superman and Lois. We don't need spin-offs. This is the best part about this show is that it's disconnected from the Arrowverse it is its own thing. You can watch all 4 of these seasons without worrying about where does this fit in here? What is this? Why is
Mm-hmm.
that? You can just watch them all and it makes sense.
You
Except for
know,
that Diggle cameo. That's it.
well, look. There was in the beginning, we're getting the Diggle cameo, and in the beginning, I was like, I really wish that Melissa Benoist's Supergirl fit in here somewhere. But as the show went on, I was very glad they didn't do that. But in the beginning, I wanted that. I wanted, his cousin to be a character of the show, like just like passing through, But especially because sometimes there was earlier seasons, especially with the Morgan Edge stuff, would have been really helpful to have another Kryptonian. And like you had that loose connection with the Arrowverse, but like it wasn't established. And in the beginning, I kind of wanted that, but I'm glad they didn't do that because this is its own thing. It's completely unhindered by any connection, and it's not. There's nothing contrived or confused. Like it is what it is. It's what it always wanted to be. Like this show got so lucky. Um, you talk about the miracle shot that Superman's parents had to, send him away from Krypton and Earth, and he ends up with the Kents. That's kind of what the show did. Like this show existed in this little bubble that they started a little later, wasn't even going to happen. And if they started a little sooner, I would have going to tie it into the Arrowverse.
Yeah. I mean, I think this will very much help the show in the afterlife as well. The fact that it's not connected for people watching it or wanting to get into it.
And it's so easy to binge.
It is.
It's so easy
53
to binge.
episodes is not a lot. Like if you watch one a day, you're looking at, only 53 days. If you're looking at one a week, you're looking at a year. If that's all you got around to, one a week. Like that's a fine binge or catch up, whatever you want to call it. There's enough here for people to catch up on, and I think it'd be. I I think the second season's probably the weakest of the
I
season,
agree with
but
that. I think Ellie Alston was the worst villain.
yeah, yeah.
But
I
like
mean,
we
because
said
think about it
last.
this way: season 1 we have Tal Rowe, we have
Mhm.
season 3 we have Bruno Mannheim, and season 4 and Onomatopoeia. In season 4 we have Lex and Doomsday. Like those are the biggest. Well, I guess Bizarro was also a villain in season 2 with Ali.
Yeah,
We got to see some of the biggest villains in Superman mythos, though.
yeah. We didn't get shortchanged with Ali Alston. I would say it was the weakest, but what was so important about that was the threads that lasted all the way until the finale. Like, sure, that might have been the weakest thing, but now try to tell the story without season two. Can't do it. And I like how they made every episode important. Like there's no like if you're going okay 40 or 53 episodes, is there any ones that I should skip? No, you got to watch them all. I also thought season two was really good for Lois's character because the stuff with her sister and her father and so much backstory there. I think that's really important stuff to the story. I think season two, um, I look back at it, some really incredible Superman moments in there. So there's no bad episode of Superman and Lois, and for that I'm thankful.
Anything else about the show that we didn't touch on yet that we have to?
The Kryptonite screw was such an awesome scene. Like he's got it's like tearing to his heart. He's X-ray
Yeah.
visions to see how close it is to his heart. Alexis screaming, "Why won't you die?" Um, I just that scene that might be the most. See this. We talk about the power level of Superman. This Superman is unmatched because at with the 60-man-year-old's heart, with General Lane's heart, he took a kryptonite screw out of his body, destroyed it, and then had enough strength to knock the steel suit off completely of Lex Luthor. Then he was strong enough to go chase him down and catch him before he dies. That this Superman is a little OP. That wasn't him at full strength. So I think we need to respect that this might be the most powerful Superman we've seen on camera, period.
Yeah, maybe the biggest or most powerful. Interesting.
Look, I'm just saying, if you have a fight between Henry Cavill Superman and Tyler Hoechlin Superman, I'm taking Tyler Hoechlin Superman every day of the week.
I would definitely probably take him over that as well.
And look,
For many reasons.
Christopher Reeve versus Cavill versus Hoechlin. I would see this. I would love a Superman No Way Home situation where we got
Reeve,
all
though, I mean, he's a little OP. He rewinds the whole planet.
Well, yeah, he does. He does. It's weird. It's a weird scale, but Tyler Hoechlin, speaking about rewinding the whole planet, goes to the sun, swings around two colliding Earths, like super speed as like many times as he can, and when he lands, it's strong enough to split two Earths apart. Let's see anybody do that.
I can do that. I'll do it. All
right, Jordan, go for it.
Next episode, I'll do it.
Doing that report for the hospital, Jordan.
Yeah,
he just hit the ground really hard. I think he took that punk rat thing, digging holes in our Dungeons and Dragons things a little too seriously.
Anyway, we'll start wrapping it up. I'll just say this show is everything I wanted it to be. I'm very happy that I started watching it 3 years ago in 2021, almost 4 years ago. And like you've mentioned a couple times, it's what got us together as host and co-host on here. I was wanting to talk about the show for building up to season 3. You came on and we talked season 1 and 2 as we built up to 3. You came back on for 3 and never left. And then we had the final season. And, I would have been fine with. I know people like to blame the whole James Gunn thing of we're getting another Superman interpretation, and the CW guy said that's why this was canceled. But look, let's be honest, CW guy was lying because they were going to be canceling everything anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy it's over, I'll say, right? Like, I'm sad it's over, but I'm happy for the memories it have. I'm happy it has a final season. It has a full ending. It has... you can sit down and watch this complete story of this. And now we get to turn the page, and later this month or next month, we're going to get the Superman movie trailer, and now we get to see a whole new interpretation of the character. And guess what? If people don't like it, we have a full 4-season show that you can revisit or visit for the first time. We have a 10-season show about young Superman with Clark Kent in Smallville. We have a whole show about Kara and Supergirl, which has Tyler Hoechlin show up, right? We have the Christopher Reeve movies. We have so many, Lois and Clark. We have so many interpretations of this character, and we're now able to close the book fully on this one. And I'll revisit it when the 4th season comes out on Blu-ray. And we'll look ahead to Superman, the movie, 2025, coming out next July. Only about 8 months away now?
Yep, July 11th. Can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, I have the countdown going. Let me see how many days we've got. Hold on. We have got 220 days. Wow. Until Superman hits theaters.
Wow. I have a genuine question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Has there ever been a better finale than this to a show? I can't think of one.
Then this show, yes, I have tons of favorite finales actually, but
Oh, okay.
it's up there. It's up there, but
It's just, I was trying to think all day. I was like trying to think what finale. Just
see, for the listeners at home, I would say the Lost finale is up there. The Dark finale is up there as well. Um, uh, especially if we're focusing more on dramas. Comedies have had some good endings too, but I can't rank them in the same
right.
thing usually. But I mean, it's up there. Probably top 5, top 10 for
Yeah.
best finales for me.
Yeah, it's up there. I one last thing I'll say is you were talking about how we have a full story and it's done, and I love that we don't have this character just hanging around like in our minds. We his story's done. It's over. It's not like Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, where it's like, yeah, theoretically they can pop up at any time. No, this is done. Um, we don't have to long for it. We don't have to ask for it. We got everything we're gonna get, and it's not like we have a competing Superman. Because one of the problems with Superman fandom is everyone's got a favorite, and right now, you know, we really just need a lot of these Henry Cavill guys to be like, jump on the David Cornsweet train, and now we'll have one less guy really competing. You know, long term. It's for who's the best.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love that there's tons of interpretations of this character, but that's what they are. They're interpretations. They're adaptations.
Yep.
So people will have favorites, people will have least favorites, but look, it's time to move on from all of the previous interpretations. They're there for you to revisit, they're there for you to rewatch, they're there for you to do whatever. But Henry Cavill's not coming back. Tyler Hoechlin's not coming back. Brandon Routh not coming back. He got his send off in Crisis. Like, we have had every character come back for. Tom Welling came back in Crisis as well and finished his story. Like, we can close the book on all of these Supermen. And
Hmm.
now we can turn the page and look ahead. And I really wish, this is one thing I really wish too, that Zack Snyder could have just, in his Justice League movie, not done the epilogue and just wrapped up whatever.
Yeah.
And then you could say, look, that's the end of Henry Cavill. But then he even brought
I,
him back for Black Adam, so you can't even do that. But
yeah, I know, but I stopped watching when I watched Zack Snyder's Justice League. I stopped before the epilogue.
yeah, but I'm saying there's a whole reason people still want him to continue his stories because of the epilogue. If he had did a definitive ending in that, I think people would have moved on.
I don't really want to see a Superman brainwashed by Darkseid killing
Oh no,
people.
play
Like
Injustice if you want that. He's evil in there. There you
that's
go.
another thing that's great. You have that. You
Yeah,
have comic books and two video games. You have that.
One thing I'll say about this finale as well is I wrapped it up and I did not want to immediately revisit the show. Like, I don't mean the episode, I mean the show as a whole.
Uh-huh.
Like, I'm like, you know what? I feel very satisfied with that. I'm going to take a break from Superman and Lois. I'll get back
Yeah.
to it sometime. It'll be nice. But what it really made me want to do, Chris, is it made me want to pick up a comic book because this felt like Superman. This felt like
It
Superman
did.
for all seasons. It felt like those classic Superman stories and Lois stories that I'm like, you know what? This makes me want to pick up a comic and just explore new interpretations of the character and ongoing comics.
It made me want to read the Jonathan Kent stuff. I was like, there's good Jonathan Kent going on right
Yeah,
now.
exactly.
So it's a good time to get into that. No, I agree with you. It's so, dude. When I revisit the show, and I will, it's going to be special. But I agree. I'm satisfied. Like I got everything I could have asked for. I feel like people are gonna like comment on this. They're gushing over this. They're not objective. Look, we're gaga in love with the show. Sorry, just them.
All right, so next week we'll be discussing Creature Commandos, the first 2 episodes of Creature Commandos. And I guess any news catch up maybe in the coming weeks here as we get ready for the Superman trailer, which, let's see, this is episode 98, I believe, of our podcast, by the way.
Ooh,
Which means Creature Commandos is episode 99, which means James Gunn, it'd be really nice if you drop the Superman trailer
please
after the next episode we record.
Please.
So that way episode 100 is a Superman trailer. That would be pretty cool.
Special. That would be special. Because we were actually trying to figure out what are we doing for 100.
That would be cool. That would be cool.
All right, that would be cool.
We're approaching episode 100 soon. If we don't do anything special
James
for
it, a solid.
It'll be probably a Creature Commandos recap or whatever, and then we'll continue from there on out. I actually have an idea. Maybe we could do something, but we'd have to see if we can fit it in. But
we'll talk about
that
off air.
Yeah. Okay. That's it. Elseworlds DC fan on all of our social medias. Have a great rest of your week. We'll catch you next time when we talk Creature Commandos episodes 1 and 2 as the DCU kicks off.